Hey, Captain Sammich here, and we got Monsters University coming out this weekend, so I thought I would take a little bit of time to discuss the original film that's based off of Monsters, Inc., to just give you guys an idea of what my perspective is going into Monsters University. So I'm just going to come right out and say it. I consider Monsters, Inc. a Pixar classic. You know, when I think of great Pixar films, or great Pixar franchises, I should say, I think Toy Story, Finding Nemo, and Monsters, Inc. And that seems like a really common view, and I think one of the reasons that Monsters, Inc. really resonates with people and why people embrace it so much is because it is a really original idea. You know, we think of monsters, we think of these just horrible creatures who are just, savages and just cause destruction and all this, terrible stuff. But Monsters, Inc. is taking this idea of these, of these monsters scaring people, and particularly scaring little kids, and turning it into a business where this is, they're all just employees at a factory, and it's just their job. They just come to work and go scare little kids, and that's not only how the employees make money, but it's also uh, essentially the fuel and the energy for this world. This city they live in, Monstropolis, is run by the screams of children, and so you constantly need scary looking monsters to go get the screams and harness them for energy. And that's a really original idea, and I personally love those types of films where they take a perspective that you haven't really thought of. Like I said, these are, monsters that we normally think of in a certain way, and this is offering a different perspective. And even going so far as to say that they are the ones who are afraid of humans. And I think it offers a lot of it offers a lot of depth to the movie, where yes, the children are afraid of the monsters, but at the same time, the monsters are terrified of the children. And so you see the dynamic of each side trying to, keep it together when they're really just freaking each other out. It makes for great dilemmas. It also makes for really good humor. And again, just really original, and it really keeps you invested in the story. They get really creative with the scenarios, and there's always something to think about, always something to laugh at, and it's really everything about the movie is really creative, from the designs of the monsters, the variations, to like the system of how they get to the human world, how they have these specially made doors that are basically like portals into children's bedrooms, that the children see them as their closet, but it's really on the other side of it is the factory, Monsters, Inc. And it's really cool, and it's a lot of stuff that is it really speaks a lot to Disney and Pixar and just their creative nature. But of course, it does have the added bonus of really interesting characters. I think Billy Crystal and John Goodman work really well off of each other. They're a perfect dynamic. But Billy Crystal is very much goofy and hyper and zany, and John Goodman's a little more laid back, and he's kind of brooding and intimidating when he has to be, but he's also got a big heart, and it's a really nice balance. I also love the villain, Steve Buscemi, as Randall, I believe is the name. It's a really interesting character. First of all, very shifty, and you never really quite know what he's got planned, and even when you think you got it figured out, he'll turn a complete 180 and do something that you haven't even thought of, and it really works. I also love the plot that Randall sets up to increase his screen record, and in order to make the company more successful, and to where I always love those villains that they think they're doing the right thing, but it's so unethical how they're doing it, but all they see is it's a worthy sacrifice because it's for the good of the company or good for the good of the town, whatever it may be. And I think this movie pulls off that villain really well and makes him really well written. Another thing I really have to commend this movie about is the action sequences. I mean, well, there's really only one huge action sequence, and it's at the end. And I do mean huge. It's basically 30 minutes straight of nonstop, cat and mouse, basically. And and you have to understand, I'm like really ADD when it comes to action sequences in movies. If if it starts getting really repetitive, or if there's not enough interesting stuff going on, I sometimes zone out a little bit during action sequences. With very few exceptions, you can kind of always predict what's going to happen, depending on the story. If you're paying attention to the story, you know enough about the characters involved in the sequence. Sometimes you can kind of tell where it's going to go, and if not, then, well, that means it's doing its job and it's keeping the viewer's interest. So, point is, it takes a lot for me to stay completely invested through an entire action sequence, especially one as long as in this film, but it's so well done, it's so well shot and choreographed, and, so creative. I know I'm using that word a lot in this video, but it's a big one. It's so creative, and it always keeps my interest. It's one of the few action sequences that I can actually follow all the way through without zoning out at all. And that, trust me, is a big accomplishment. If there's anything I really don't like about the movie, the girlfriend, Mike Wazowski's girlfriend, I forget her, Celia. Celia. I just find her kind of infuriating. She really exemplifies the, kind of dumb damsel in distress sort of stereotype. I mean, she's never really in distress, but just sort of the, wide-eyed, innocent, pretty girl who has no idea what's going on, including when they're in the restaurant and, they first find out that Boo, the kid, is there, the human kid. Everybody's freaking out and panicking, and Mike is trying to get the kid. He's trying to help, straighten everything out. She somehow has no idea what's going on, or at least she doesn't act like it, and then confronts him later on, like, what the hell was that? Why weren't you with me at dinner? I don't know, maybe because the whole place was in complete panic. And there's just a few moments like that where you really question how much she's really paying attention, or how much she's actually picking up of her surroundings, because it's really unrealistic. And every time she's on screen, it's a little distracting because you just wonder what's going on in that head. There's so many moments where she's mad about something, but what she's mad about is something that can easily be explained and isn't even the person's fault. They're just going along with the circumstances as they would normally, and she's acting like, Mike in particular is such a horrible person. Luckily, she's not in the movie that much, but every time she is on screen, I kind of facepalm a little bit. But that's a really minor gripe, and the rest of the movie is just great. And I love, the last point I'll get into, I really appreciate all the little touches that this movie has, especially over the ending credits. where they actually have a blooper reel. It's a fully animated blooper reel with the characters, you know, flubbing their lines or, you know, pratfalls and all of that. And it makes it feel, you know, more, I don't want to say real, but, you know, it makes it feel more genuine. That's the word I'm looking for. It makes it feel like the writers and the makers of the movie have a real genuine connection with the characters. And also, like, later on in the credits, they actually show the play that was mentioned earlier in the movie. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, it's a long story about what the play is, but just, you know what, just watch the movie. If seriously, if you haven't seen Monsters Inc., I think you owe it to yourself at least once, no matter your age, because it really is an ageless movie, a timeless movie, and I think there's something for people of all ages to enjoy it. So, I think that's really the bottom line here. Is it's a classic, and there's a lot to enjoy, and it never gets boring. It's one of Pixar's best, and certainly fits in with the rest of Disney's fantastic catalog. So going into Monsters University, it's really hard to tell because, like I said, it is one of the Pixar classics. And when it comes to sequels to Pixar classics, really all we have to go by is the Toy Story franchise. And Toy Story 2 and 3 I love. And, you know, I consider the Toy Story trilogy as a whole to be the best thing that Pixar's ever done. So I'm just trying to stay positive and say that it's going to go that route. It could go the way of, like, Cars, where even though I didn't list Cars as like a great movie before, Cars is a really enjoyable movie. I like it a lot. Cars 2, I hear, is really bad. I've sort of avoided it because for that very reason, because I keep hearing all these horrible things about it. So I think it's really a coin toss as to whether Monsters University is going to be worth it. I'm looking forward to it. I think the trailers look promising, and I am more than happy to see these characters on the big screen again, but we'll have to see, and that'll be sometime this weekend. We'll figure it out. So, until then, thank you for watching, and this is Capn Sammich, signing out.